Welcome to the Lion Nation Podcast. Now to your host, Chuck Grace.
Welcome everyone to Bush's Chicken for this week's edition of the Lion Nation Podcast. Can we get a big shout out to Bush's Chicken, everybody, for hosting us tonight? I also want to give them credit because they support the Leander High School Football Booster Club in innumerable ways, but they do provide plenty of Bush's iced tea to be sold in concession. And so if you can support Bush's Chicken, you know a lot of that support gets passed along to your high school team, and of course that's the Lions, if you're paying attention to this podcast. So welcome, Coach. How are you this evening?
Well. How are you?
Doing pretty good. We're about 2/3 away through the season, and you know, you quite haven't even been here quite a full year yet, have you?
Not. I'll be a full year in February.
Full year in February. Yep. So you know, considering all of that, you know, it's a building process, and that's what we're looking at right now. You know, we had Vista Ridge visit on Friday. We've got Round Rock coming up this week, and then we've got 3 more games beyond that. And you know, this is really a long process. It's more than one season. Of course, there's a group of seniors that are worried about this season, and of course, the juniors and sophomores are always worried about the current situation. Talk a little bit about that whole situation, the long run here. That it's not just what we're looking at from this past Friday to this next Friday all the time. Sometimes.
Yeah, it's obviously a tough thing because you really want your seniors to enjoy their time, especially in their last year. And so, you know, we're working tooth and nail to try to figure out our best ways to give them a little bit of success before they are out of this program. And at the same time, when you look at some of our younger guys, you have to start, you know, thinking about their future and how to prepare them best for success in a couple of years. So sometimes you have, you know, some conflicting ideas where you're doing some things with some of the younger guys to try to help them get prepared for their future while still trying to maintain a good opportunity for our senior class. And, you know, for both groups, you know, we've talked a lot about little things in terms of fixing to try to build. And, you know, early in the season, we were talking a lot about, you know, our penalty situation and some of those things. And we've seen some operational penalties go away. They've been a lot better at that. You know, this week it was, you know, a couple of pass interference calls that,
questionable.
Sure.
Judgment calls.
Sure. And so, you know, they've progressed in that matter. And so now at this point, you're just looking to clean up your issues. I thought we tackled a little bit better on Friday, which was a issue a couple of weeks ago. So some of the things that we've really focused on, we've started to see improvement with. We just still got to get the execution part going in all phases and making sure, you know, we're not making those critical mistakes at bad times.
Well, and in the district that we're in, you don't really have an off week. It's a tough week every week, and so you're building all of this. You know, the program. You know, there's the microcosm of the current game, and then there's the rest of this season, and then there's beyond that. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, I know it's a lot of moving parts. So.
Sure. Well, I think kind of what you just said plays out in actual games. I think when you have a play, whether it's good or bad, you can start trying to project what the rest of the game is looking like and not really focus on the next play you're going to play. And so, you know, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about one-game seasons and trying to stay in the moment. And that's sometimes what we try to fight. You know, we had a couple of early mistakes that you can completely recover from, but you sometimes kind of hit the panic button because you're thinking, oh, my God, it's going to get out of control here quickly. And then you start making decisions that you otherwise wouldn't make. And so, you know, you're constantly trying to keep them just kind of in the moment and making sure that they're focused on just the next play and then from the next, you know, the next game.
It's hard. Just take pride in this play sometimes. Sometimes you have to reduce it to that and then build from there.
Yeah.
So, And going into this week, it doesn't get any easier. We're taking on the Round Rock Dragons, who look like they're one of the top 2 or 3 teams in district. You've obviously watched film of Round Rock. They really had an explosive quarterback last year, and their offense really hadn't missed a beat. Talk a little bit about that.
The young man that's filling in at quarterback now, has very good arm talent. He's pretty athletic. He can run around quite a bit. I think, the biggest place where you see their talent kind of fall is on their offensive and defensive lines. I think they have a
nice place to have talent,
yes,
right?
Yes, it absolutely is. They have, some bigger guys that can, get off the ball on the defensive line, and their offensive line does a great job of making running lanes for their running back, and skill position I think is on par. One thing I'll kind of say about the district as a whole is, everybody has talent at skill positions. And
sure.
So a lot of times the biggest difference is going to be what the offensive line looks like or the defensive line looks like.
And depth in those positions, and really in all of the positions. But, depth is really key on both of the lines of scrimmage.
Absolutely.
So. Do you have any questions for Coach?
Yeah, I remember back at the very beginning when you were being introduced to all the parents, and that first big night for you, I'm sure was a bit nerve-wracking. One thing that really impressed me was the attitude you had of wanting to come in and build on what they already had. Tell me a little bit about how that's been progressing, how you were able to pull what they'd already been working on and develop off of that.
Well, you look at kind of the blocking schemes. I'll talk about the receivers. The blocking scheme for the receivers in the old offensive system, those were things that we could use in this offensive system. I think you've seen us have success in our run game because of how our receivers are blocking down the field and blocking on the edge. So, all of our running backs have benefited from something that they already knew and have grown on it quite a bit. Defensively, we've used some of the same schemes that they used last year and have used it at different points over the last couple of years because it's things that kids are familiar with. I didn't go in and just dump all of the terminology and the verbiage because I didn't want to slow the kids down. So referring back to some of the terminology and verbiage that they've had in the past was an easy way to kind of connect what we want to do with what they've done already.
And you're going to have to transition that to what you're more comfortable with as well. Okay, so one of the things that I spoke to a couple of parents about recently is, and along the lines of you being here less than a year, we were in a modified veer last season. You're hired in February, and before you're practically even here, 7-on-7 is underway.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to enter in 7-on-7 and run a veer in a 7-on-7 competition.
Sure.
Now, sure, there's some pass plays out of that offense that you could work on, but ultimately the point being, we didn't even get the opportunity for our quarterbacks to work on timing with receivers. Our defensive players did get an opportunity to work against some offenses in 7-on-7, but really the things like that are available to established programs that are kind of hitting on all cylinders really weren't available to us. And so talk about those kind of challenges and, I'm sure it's going to turn around going forward. But.
Sure. We played in the Cedar Park 7-on-7 league, and, there were a couple of Tuesdays where we got rained out, and so you don't get as much work as you would hope for. But the time that we spent there, we were able to install a little bit to kind of get them ahead of what the fall was going to be. So there's always benefit anytime you can do a 7-on-7 or a big man competition just to be around the kids and get the kids to interact with each other and work together. And so we had a few of those opportunities, but like you said, obviously moving forward, we'll have a lot more opportunities to do those things, and the kids will benefit from that. And so I just didn't want, not to do anything with this group, so we threw them in whatever we could to try to make sure that they had an opportunity to do something to try to learn a little bit.
Right, and there's some benefit in there.
Sure.
But that's one of those things that as you've built the program and it's starting to get its own momentum, the off-season conditioning, the 7-on-7, just the ultimate culture shift is going to start taking more hold. And I think people every year, I'm a Cowboys fan. After week 3, we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Football's always that way. Everybody's 0-0 at the beginning of the year, and everybody's going to win it all.
Sure.
It's not super easy to just step in and do that because everybody is fighting and working to do that. And so it's something that has to be built upon and progress. And I just want people to understand that. And I think you're well aware of that. You've been around long enough.
And, the part that we try to express to our seniors is, regardless of what the record turns out to be, they're the kind of foundation of what's going to happen in the next several years. Their attitude that they take into practice and what they say and do with our younger kids is going to be what ultimately gets the ball rolling to move forward. And so, I think that obviously everybody wants to win every game. Our seniors are no different, but I think for the most part they kind of get that, and at least I hope they do. And they're going to be, they're going to be that foundation. They're going to be the team that we talk about down the road that says, any positive thing that's happening for Leander football right now is because of this group of young men.
Well, and in terms of individuals, you can still contribute. I'm sure there are a few people that have had some interest from college recruiters. You can end up on that wall. It doesn't matter what your team record is, and so you can always come back and be one of those people that speak to the current iteration of lines and impart some of your knowledge. I guess my flags fell down. I didn't even notice. Okay, so we've got Coach Dixon and Coach Beef. So we'll take them one at a time, and then we got a couple players, and we'll let you go get some chicken, Coach.
Well, I'm going to go check on a young man that had surgery today, so I'm going to take off real quick. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Hopefully, Coach Dixon and Coach Beef behave themselves.
Good luck on Friday.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach.
I guess JV's at Reading Brushy this Thursday. RBMS, that's right. Yeah.
There you go. Let's get something in there.
Coach Dixon.
Welcome back. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Thanks for having me back.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm surprised you invited me
anytime. So we talked to Coach Price a little bit. You were listening. As this season has progressed, people have had their moments of frustration. Everybody, parents, coaches, players. But it's a process.
For sure.
And I just talked to Coach a little bit about the 7-on-7, getting kind of last second, let's get something in there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that quality work wasn't done, but I'm sure there's better plans for this go around. Talk a little bit about the development of the program as you've seen it so far here in your time.
Well, right now it's a lot of kind of getting back to the basics, and it's really fun because you look at the kids and they're starting to. It looks like they're having fun. So that was one of the first things I know. It's kind of like once we started kind of doing the stuff that we started to do, everything kind of got looser, and everyone it started to feel like high school kids playing football again.
Right.
And so with Coach Price, he's very visionary. He's got a very, very good forward-thinking kind of mind, and that's been real good because he's really interested in the development of the kids and of the program. So,
well, one of the things I've noticed from him, and this is more from a distance, and you can either confirm or deny, but he seems to have remained pretty even-keeled during a lot of fairly intense situations, both on the field and off the field, and that's one of the things I've been impressed with because I'm up in the booth. I have a microphone, but it has a mute, so I can yell. And I'm near the coaches that are over in the booth, and you'll hear. It doesn't matter what team it is. Something goes wrong. There's a fist on the table and some screaming, and so talk a little bit about that and how it can affect the team.
Well, for one, when you get to know Coach Price, that's who he is. That's who he is on the field, off the field, and I mean. It's good for the kids because, for one, they don't they're learning not to get so worked up. One of his main things have been to not freak out when things don't go right, because it's a football game.
Right.
So things will go wrong at some
Sure.
point. It won't ever be just a perfect game. And so because he's taken so much time to try to teach these kids, hey, just because a bad play happened, the next one doesn't have to be as bad. We have to, get out of the mindset of hanging on the last play and get in the mindset of going forward to the next one. Yeah.
Well, you coach quarterbacks.
I do now. Yep.
Well, and it's a tough position, and especially in the offenses that are run in high school and really a lot of colleges today.
Right.
It's a lot of run-centric plays for a quarterback.
Yeah.
And I'll just use Southwestern University as an example. They've been through 3 starting quarterbacks, and they're only in their 4th game this season. So
They are now down to their 4th string.
talk a little bit
quarterback.
about that. How it is to coach just a group of like maybe 4 to 6 kids, and try to keep them all healthy and going.
Thankfully, I've gotten to have a little bit of experience when I was there at Texas A&M Kingsville. I was a student assistant coach there with the quarterbacks,
Right.
and so I was able to kind of get a lot of the management styles down and kind of get a lot of the basic stuff learned. And so, switching from receivers to quarterbacks kind of made me feel back at home, because that was the stuff I was used to anyways. And then on top of that, it's been a blessing because we have Will Loof and we got Garrett Landry and Aiden Parrott that we've been training on the varsity level, and all 3 of those guys are just phenomenal guys to coach, and we really, really enjoy being around each other. So Garrett Landry's a starter, and he's young. He's still learning, so that has presented it. It's presented specific challenges, but at the same time, that kid's phenomenal. He's hands down one of the best kids I've coached, and I've, as young as I am, I've coached for a while.
I think Loof probably wants to play defense more than offense.
Yeah, it's hard to get him back over to the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, we'll talk to Coach Beef later. He's been spending a little bit of time on the
Loof,
field.
you're on offense.
He does deliver some highlight hits.
Man, so if you look, he's got pictures of him. He's screaming.
I wouldn't want to be on the end of that.
He's a blast. We have a lot of fun out there.
Now, talk a little bit about you mentioned coaching from going from receiver to quarterback, but talk a little bit about the relationship between those positions, because a lot of really successful high school teams, and I've noticed we're doing a little bit of it here, is future quarterbacks, while they're not sitting on the bench, they're usually playing one of those wide receiver positions.
Yep.
And talk about that a little bit.
They're very intertwined. In my opinion, if you can go play receiver, you could have the ability to be a good quarterback, and vice versa.
As long as you have those key skills.
You still have to have a few prerequisites. Right. But the relationship between the 2 positions is, if you understand where you're supposed to be as a receiver, it makes it even easier when you're a quarterback, because now you're able to think about it as in, okay, against this coverage I'm supposed to be here, this coverage I'm supposed to be here, and as a quarterback, you're dropping back in the pocket, and okay, here's the coverage, that's exactly where my guys are supposed to be. So they're very well connected, and same thing for the tight end position. Tight end's the exact same. In college where I coach, instead of receivers, because these are typically bigger guys, they switch from quarterback and tight end rather than quarterback and receivers. But
it's kind of the pocket passer style guy.
For sure.
Yeah.
And they're huge guys.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think Loof would probably fit better at tight end than receiver, but he does okay at receivers.
No, he's pretty good. And he's somebody that we can rely on. He plays very physical.
I think he found his spot though.
He's got honestly, he's got a couple of them. He's got a couple of spots, because that kid can play some football.
Yeah,
and I love that kid. Love that kid.
Okay, so do you have anything for Coach?
Yeah. So you talk about Landry and some of these other young men, and each one of them has their own special, unique talents.
That's for sure.
How do you approach it with each one to really grow what they're best at, but expand that into some other new skills? And you've got somebody who's a great scrambler like Landry. how do you bring him into maybe some of those short passes and getting them to think outside of what they're comfortable with?
That's a great question, because that's the challenge that I'm faced with every single day. The answer to it is simply try to bring out the best in every single one of them. For instance, Landry can spin the ball, and if you've watched him play, that ball flies out of his hands. And Loof is more, very kind of cerebral. He understands what he's looking at. He understands formation. He understands leadership. To where Aiden Parrott, my young gun, Aiden is just crazy athletic, especially for a sophomore.
He's all relying on instinct out there.
Oh, right now, yeah. Right now, yeah. But that's really what it's about. It's about, first off, you have to figure out what they're good at. And then once you figure out what they're good at, then you can kind of expand from there. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, and they'll be able to tighten up that the timing that's there over the 7-on-7 as we mentioned in the spring.
Right.
And I wanted to add that I've also noticed of your coaching style is that the players seem to really like to be around you. I mean, you like to have fun. I mean, you can tell they enjoy that.
Good.
And that's the kind of stuff that'll get kids in when there typically wouldn't be, but during the summer.
Right.
Hey, we're heading out. We're going to throw some passes.
Well, that's one of the is why I do what I do. And they understand, or being here for already 1 year, going on 2 years, they're starting they finally get to kind of get an inside peek at exactly who I am.
Sure.
And so that's been a blessing that they enjoy being around me. Somebody should tell that to my wife. I'm just kidding. So
hopefully she's
that
watching.
Part's been fun. She's watching for sure. That part's been real cool.
Well, you're close to their age, so
I think that has something to do with it. But I'm also I get called the millennial in the office.
Is that
I'm
right?
the youngest coach there, and they make sure I never forget that ever.
Well, they'll never let you forget that, I'm sure, until there's one that's younger that comes along. And
Come on, Coach Price, get them in here so they can leave me alone.
Okay, well, are you almost done over there, Coach? So we'll let you go. We'll let you get back to your meal.
And thank y'all for what y'all do, man. I
definitely,
really appreciate
Coach.
it. Thank y'all.
And we'll get Coach Beef up here, and then we'll have a couple of players up here, one at a time. One is Josh Davis, and the other was.
I do not remember.
Huh?
I'm trying to remember which players we're going to visit with.
Logan Davis. There was a former player named Josh Davis. So. Hey, Coach Beef, how you doing?
How's it going? Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Coach. So, kind of our theme tonight, and it's kind of where we've been going along, is process. Mm-hmm. And if anybody knows about process, it's a former Marine, right?
Sure.
So, talk a little bit about your experience with the process, where we're at, and what you see vision-wise for where we're going. Not necessarily this week, but down the road, even later this season or into next.
Well, I think with any new captain that comes in, you speak about the new commanding officer,
sure.
the new head coach that comes in, they're going to have their values and mores that they want to kind of see the program entrenched in. And so, I've really enjoyed the relationship with Coach Price this year as far as finding out, okay, what is it that you want to have instilled and start laying that groundwork. And I get the blessed to be able to start that groundwork for him in the weight room.
Right.
And so start laying it there.
That's really a foundation. There.
Correct. Mm-hmm. And so when we look at it, that's, kind of look at what the athletes have been through over the past couple of years as far as changes is hopefully we're going to start giving a little bit more continuity with the group as far as what you're used to, who you're used to. And so it's not that foundation doesn't keep shifting underneath you.
Right.
Because everybody's a little bit different. I mean, we all kind of have the same, we all want to achieve the same thing. We want to grow strong men, have a good football program, win some games, and have some fun.
Sure.
But how we each approach it's a little bit different.
Well, and some people, especially societally today, they want that result immediately.
Correct.
You have Amazon Prime, you order something, sometimes it's there that afternoon. Mm-hmm. At the very least, it's the next day. you want to watch a movie, you stream it. It's just instant. But this is not that kind of process.
No, not at all. And that, funny enough, there's actually a conversation I had with the JV guys when they got done with their lift this afternoon, is that there is no quick get strong program.
Especially get strong. There's a quick get weak program. It's just don't lift.
Just don't lift, and don't get your 8 hours of sleep.
Right.
Don't eat right. So there's definitely a quick get weak real fast. But at the same time, it's going back to, you mentioned Marine Corps and process and whatnot. It takes time to know each other.
Right.
And if you're not in it together, as far as the weight room, practices, classroom, and then outside of school, if you're not doing life together, you're not really growing that system to where when you turn left, I know why you're turning left. Well,
and it's something that you can it's limited that you can build in practice.
Correct.
On the field. And it's something that you really have to work at. And as you mentioned, everybody's a little bit different. Personalities are going to clash a lot of times. You have to be able to work around those. And so, to me, football teaches so many things about life that can assist people in being successful in their normal day-to-day professions. I mean, I've seen it all the time in my own life. Talk a little bit about that. How people with different personalities, they may still have the same goal, but they may not have the same approach. And how do you kind of rein that in and get everybody on the same page? Because I know D linemen are probably some of the crazier guys.
It really, to me, comes down to, does everybody have the same vision? Can the leader project a vision for everybody to buy into, and then everybody understands what is that? How do I fit into that vision? What skill set do I have? What talents do I have that add to that vision, add to that team? And so, you mentioned we get it instantly nowadays, or it seems like we get it instantly. Right. And so we're taking more of we need to build relationships with each other. Real relationships. And, I fight this in the classroom all the time. As far as when you come in mind, we're going to have discussion with each other, and it's not going to be through 140 characters.
Right. Face-to-face.
It has to be face-to-face. If you have a problem have a hard time getting up in front of people, we're going to confront that head on. And just talk about the fact that how the energy you bring to the room, the energy that you bring to the team, lifts the team up. But at the same time, they could bring them down. The days that you're not there, well, hopefully the way it's supposed to work is that you pour in. The day that you can't pour in, everybody else pours into you and brings you back along.
Right.
But that only happens through a fully immersed relationship type team.
But you can't be the guy that's always getting filled up, right?
No, you can't.
You've got to be the guy that's pouring out. And I think that people will realize if they give it a chance, maybe not just one time, but over a little bit of time, they realize that the real reward is the pouring out into the other people. And that's really what coaching kind of is.
It is, because and I'm big, and hopefully, I say this about myself, hopefully the kids will say about it too, is I'll be the first person to tell you when I was wrong, or I did something wrong, or, hey, I tried something and I failed at this. And I think we kind of have that system because we can get everything instantly, because we don't have the letdown of not getting it, that when you get put in situations where you might fail, that we don't often commit 100% to that endeavor because, well, guess what? It hurts when it doesn't work out for you. Yeah. And so, but that's kind of where the coaches and relationships step in and pick you back up. Yeah, okay, I know it stung a little bit, but let's not do that again.
I had my own experience with that earlier this year. I took a certification test, and I didn't pass it the first time.
Got it.
And but that's just it. I owned it, and then I went back and I studied harder, and I got it. So
correct.
That's just part of it. You're not always going to be successful.
No.
And a lot of times it has nothing to do with your preparation, execution, or anything. Sometimes it doesn't work out.
Sometimes it just doesn't.
Well, it's been a tough season for the Lions. You heard us talk a little bit about it earlier, where we've, again, the instantaneous, everybody wants to win right away, but this is a process. And you've mentioned it a little bit already. You're in the weight room. We talked to Coach Price and Coach Dixon about 7-on-7. Mm-hmm. Everybody's in the weight room, but it's really kind of a big guy area.
Yeah.
Talk about the weight room, the strength program, and are there any plans for some kind of big guy competitions in the spring?
So we definitely want to add, we mentioned 707. We had talked about actually having a big man competition last year. It was just one of those ones where we wanted to do it right. And because of the time constraints and everything else going wrong and everybody getting used to each other, it just didn't pan out. So it's definitely on the books for next year to have those big man competitions, to where if 707's happening over here, then hey, we'll run a big man over here, so that we get the big man on top of it. And I think 2 weeks ago, walked in and laid out a whole 52-week plan out in front of Coach Price, as far as this is kind of what it's going to look like. Here's all the dates of conflicting exams and whatnot and holidays, and this is.
So he's looking at that right now.
So we got the groundwork being laid to build these kids up, and so it's going to take the buy-in. And as far as, and we've really worked on putting everything we can out there to educate them as far as why you need 8 hours of sleep, how it affects your body healing, and how it affects preventing injuries for you on the football field, how proper nutrition actually, it helps grow that system, because you can work your tail off as much as you want in the weight room, but if you're putting sugar in the gas tank, then your car ain't going to go very far.
Well, and I think when I was in high school, I tried to gain a bunch of weight, and all I did was cram peanut butter sandwiches down my gullet at night. It didn't really work out, and I didn't sleep enough. That was one of the keys. I've always been that way, but I should probably be putting more hours in. You got questions for Coach?
Well, you make a good point. I actually have a medical background, and a lot of people don't realize how much things off of the field and out of the weight room contribute or detract from the performance level. So it's things that how do you find ways to encourage them, especially when they are having a rough season, and it's very discouraging for them, to get them to focus on taking care of themselves and looking at it more as this is another tool in your toolbox that you do have control over.
Well, I think for me, it's one, as coaches, we actually demonstrate and emulate what we're trying to get them to do. And so, it's kind of interesting when you see a 290-pound guy start doing yoga and, get down to some of those positions. But, yoga is definitely big for us.
That's one of the tougher exercises anyone can do.
Well, and then when you talk about the fact of, who actually came up with yoga, and find out that, it was for a warrior class and it wasn't just something that the girls came up with.
No, it's about you're being limber and maintaining strength.
It was the toughest P90X workout that I did of all of them. That was the toughest one.
So I think, definitely being able to switch it up, and knowing when we have alternative workout weeks and say, hey, we're having strongman competitions this week, or we're, this week's more of a circuit week, and just kind of breaking up the monotony, because, as much as a meathead as I am, and I love, we're in the middle of Squat-tober right now. And, but at the same time, for young kids and young training age, and they haven't been in the gym a long time, you got to switch it up for them.
Well, and even, guys like myself who, when we worked out, it was an intense, short amount of workout.
Correct.
But we didn't spend all summer working out and thinking, so you would lose all this strength over the summer. And then now as an adult, when I try to work out, it's the same way, and I always end up getting hurt or something like that. So, you have to really learn to exercise, and there's appropriate times to have high intensity workouts, and there's appropriate times for more low intensity stuff. And talk about that importance.
Well, the importance is actually giving your body a chance to adapt to what you've done to it. Because after a while, it's just you're just going to plateau out, because, hey, guess what? I can take what you're throwing at me. And so you need to have those moments where, and the science is still coming in as far as, okay, what's the real benefit of deloading at a certain point in time, and how much do you deload? And then, again, I think it really comes back to that people can only eat chicken and rice so many times a week.
And you can only put so many spices
You
on
only
it.
just put so many spices on it and say, okay, hey, this is chicken with curry, and this is chicken with strawberries, and it's still chicken.
Still chicken, that's right.
And so, but I think having the ability to get the same type of stimulation on a physical level, but showing it to them in different ways. I mean, go back to offensive plays. I asked one of the offensive coordinators that we faced over the summer. We were doing an all-star game together, and I said, will you please take it easy on me this year when you do all your formations, because I really don't want to do that much homework. But it was 50 formations, but they were running 4 plays.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same thing kind of goes in the weight room. We're doing the same thing. We're just doing it in a multitude of different ways.
Right.
And so you just kind of, it's a little bit of a shell game. And like I said, to break the monotony and keep them having fun in there. And actually building competition into the weight room. And so when they don't really see kind of what's the benefit of me really going after my workout buddy, it can get a little dull in there sometimes.
Well, and you're limited in the number of coaches available at a given workout, right? And there's a number of kids, and I mean, I'm just going to always rely back on my own experience. Reps of 10 sometimes were reps of 6 or 8 when the coach wasn't standing nearby.
Well, and I definitely got to thank the Booster Club for that. And so we've been blessed that they provided us with a weight management system.
There you go.
That I can assign platforms to coaches, and they have the workout in front of them. They have the weights and rep scheme in front of them. And so it's like, instead of me having to watch 10 different racks, okay, I got one coach watching 4 racks, and we're counting reps and sets.
That's good.
And so there's definitely some accountability. And now, guess what? This new enhancement we got, I can actually throw your weights and rep schemes up on the screen for everybody to see.
Well, and that's something to be said about accountability.
It is. And so I think it takes time for you to develop your own discipline, to hold yourself accountable to a certain standard.
Well, and that's something you develop throughout life.
Correct.
Because you can give yourself excuses all day long, and you can convince yourself of things that may not even be entirely true. That this is true because of these certain circumstances, and I'm not to get specific,
but I think one of the big things I think all of us as coaches are trying to develop with these young men is that as we're developing leaders within the program, that we're developing servant leaders. And they understand that if I am going to be a good leader, that I'm actually serving the team, and I put the team first, and that if I take care of them enough, then I'm going to get what I want. And I think if we can grow them, then 20 years down the road, when I got a couple more gray hairs, well, actually, that's why I'm shaved now, so I can't see my
so
gray
they
hairs.
don't see it.
Is that look back and see these young men walk out actually serving their community and serving their families and serving the people around them, and them being the leaders that we know they can be.
And
Well,
it's all about what they're doing when they're not up on the screen.
Correct.
What are they doing when nobody's watching?
Exactly. And so, because somebody's always watching, whether you think it or not, somebody's always watching.
Well, and that's the key when you talk about leadership. Kind of a little bit off, but when you talk leadership, a lot of people just assume that people are naturally leaders. That you're born and you're a leader. That's not the case, though. Some people it's easier for them, but anybody can be built into a leader, right?
Correct. I think a lot of times people are naturally charismatic.
Sure.
And they draw people to them. It doesn't necessarily make them a leader.
Or a good one.
They just kind of flock to them and follow them. Versus, I think most good leaders are actually introverts.
Sure.
That have learned to, in these situations, then I need to kind of step up because I have this skill set and knowledge set to be a leader. But at the same time, an introvert sometimes has that humbleness about them to where they're not looking for
the accolades that go along with it.
They're not looking for the accolades that go along with it.
Right.
Exactly.
Correct.
Well, and oftentimes, they're not looking for that credit, but they realize that, they have to kind of step out of their comfort zone a little bit and lead. Now, of course, you have the walk the talk method of leadership, but to me, that only goes so far.
Yeah.
While you have guys that go 100% on every play, if that person's never vocal, if he never calls out a teammate for, when they're obviously wrong or something like that, then I think that they're not being the leader that they could be.
Correct.
So, and I really like what I see in a lot of the kids. It's been a rough year, but, there've been a couple of those of late. And so, we know what's in front of us.
Yes, sir.
And it's just a matter of attacking it and being patient, I really think. Honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come.
Right.
And so, one of the big things I always tell the kids is that anything worth having in life takes time.
That's right.
And so if it comes instantaneously, there's going to be a drop-off at some point, and you're not going to be ready for it. And I know it's hard to say that adversity builds character and that this is just something you have to go through in life, and that's a hard pill to swallow, especially
when it's happening to you. It is, but when you look back on it and you realize,
you get grateful for it.
Coach Beef was right. He's a smart guy.
Yeah, sometimes maybe.
Well, Coach, I think we're going to have is it Logan Davis. And
Sounds good.
Did you hear know who the other player was?
Oh, I can pick one.
No, that's right. No, Sarpong. All right.
Sounds good. Well,
He's not going to be here? Okay. Well, is he here now? Okay. Well, we'll pick somebody else, Coach. Just pick somebody else.
Yeah, we got Matt McDaniel.
We'll get. Macdaniel will work.
I just called him out, so he's got to come up. So.
But we'll start off with Mr. Davis here.
Sounds good. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach.
Oh.
Hello. Welcome.
How you doing, Logan?
Good. How are y'all?
I'm doing well.
Thank y'all for having me here.
What is this?
Open.
Oh, I was
the
like,
game
why are you
time
giving me a bill? You already have those. You don't need any new ones. Okay, Logan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm going to mention to you, and you probably heard if you've listened to any of the podcasts, you're in my favorite position group. And I don't mean, the tackles are necessarily my favorite, although they're okay. I'm a big center guy personally, but you're part of probably, in my opinion, and in many other people's opinion, the most important position group in football. And we talked a little bit earlier with Coach Price, and he talked about the skill guys at Round Rock being the same as the skill guys here, but the line being big guys. So talk a little bit about the defensive line you've seen on film and what you got to look forward to on Friday night against the Dragons.
So what we've seen in film, we saw that Round Rock, their D-line are trained very well, but they're not the biggest guys.
Okay.
There's no number 80, as we say, from Hendrickson.
Right, that guy was huge.
Yeah, and weighing like 300 pounds or whatever.
Yeah, he was a grown man.
Their D-line are smaller, and so we can handle them. But they are skilled, and they know what to do.
And they're pretty quick, too, right?
They are quick.
They also have pretty good linebackers, but really, their main attack is coming from the offensive side of the ball. So we'll talk to McDaniel about that in a little bit. But so we'll continue offensively. So talk about what it's like to work with a group of guys like that. How close are you to the other offensive linemen? Do y'all have like a chat group or things like that?
Yeah, we have multiple group chats. Just O-line everywhere. The JV has a group chat. The varsity has a group chat for the O-line. And we have multiple football group chats all over. And, we're very close.
So what's the percentage of football talk on those group chats? About, 12, 15%?
I mean...
About half at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, most of us are on those group chats, and we're talking all the time.
Well, it's one way to try to build relationship with individuals, but being old school, I'm going to get on a soapbox here. And Coach Beef mentioned it a little bit earlier. There's some face-to-face interaction that needs to occur. As offensive linemen, do y'all try to get together?
Yeah, actually, every once in a while, we try to go every week or so. We go out to eat places. We went to Carl's a few weeks back. Mm-hmm. We came here about 3 or 4 weeks ago. We have a good time together. And then we go driving out. We go get ice cream. And we just have a good time.
Well, that's the thing. Offensive linemen are usually fun guys. I mean, they like to eat and they like to have a good time.
Two fun things.
But they are willing to go to work when it's time to go to work. Mm-hmm. So Talk a little bit about your experience in the weight room and off season with Coach Beef and how it prepared you for coming into this season. You're a junior, right?
Yes, I am a junior. So Coach Beef is he's really the off-season coordinator. He helps us in the weight room, and he's normally the one that plans out all our runs, and he trains us well. He's a big dude. I believe
Can't step out of line, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I believe he was in the
Marine Corps.
The Marine Corps, yeah, for a few years, and so yeah, he's a big tough guy. I really look up to him. He's a good person.
Yeah,
and,
there's something to be said about that, though, to have a coach that you can look to. And really, you want it to be all of your coaches. But, being a lineman, you probably only interact with, 2 or 3 coaches?
Well, I mean, the coaches all work together, and then we work with our coaches. So really, we're talking to all the coaches, just not all at the same time.
Right, so you're basically Coach King, Coach Thomason, and Coach Price mainly, though, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's good, though, that you can still interact with the other coaches. They always remember your name because the linemen are usually the easiest to
I was
forget.
actually I was kind of surprised about that. I got here the first week. I didn't even know. Well, I'd say first week. I mean, first week with some of the new coaches. Coach Bailey. Who else? What was the new?
Coach Martin?
Coach Martin, yeah. And I can hardly remember their names.
Right.
They're like, "What's up, Davis?" I'm like, "What's up, Coach Number 1?"
Well, the sad part is they have more names to remember.
Yeah,
you have
that's the
fewer to
crazy
remember.
thing.
Well, I mean, you're trying. Did you just move here this year, or
No, I've been here.
You've been here?
Yeah, I've been here.
So you already knew all the kids, so you only had to learn a handful of coaches' names. And you still
Yeah,
couldn't get it.
I'm not the best with names. I don't know.
I'm the worst with names.
Yeah.
I mean, I even got your name wrong before you came up here. That kid probably was on the team 2 years ago that I said. He had the same last name, though. So, do you have anything you want to ask? Logan?
Yeah. So when you're approaching a game like the one you've got coming up, like you said, there's big difference between big guys from Hendrickson and these smaller guys. But those smaller guys are squirrely. They're faster. They're going to be quick. Their job is to close the gap. Your job is to open it. How do you approach that differently from these big guys that you were up against now to these smaller guys?
So with big guys, the thing is, with big guys you can control them. With small, fast guys, you really have to make sure that they can't juke you out or get away from you, and that's why
It's harder to get your hands on.
with big guys, we can keep solo blocks because they don't get away. With smaller guys, we have to stick together and close our gaps all together. So
otherwise they'll run.
yeah,
right between
otherwise they'll try to run away or they'll get through these little cracks. Any place, one of those little dudes will get through. They'll find it.
Do y'all have big splits or what you would consider big splits?
I wouldn't say big splits. We're going to have a little bit wider splits this week than we did last week, but I mean it's still 2.5, 3 feet.
Yeah, that's about average.
Yeah, it's about average.
Do you think it helps to widen the splits? Create a little bit of running lanes?
I wouldn't think it would help the splits to widen them this game because these guys are fast. If we widen our splits, then we lose control, and they're going to go through those gaps.
So you're going to want to tighten it up.
Yeah,
a
we're going
little
to want
bit?
to tighten it up
Okay.
so we can control.
Think they've got a lane and then close them down.
So what do you like better, run blocking or pass blocking?
I am a fan of pass blocking. I like being able to get back and let them decide where to go and then reacting to
They
them.
just move them out of the
Yeah.
way.
With run blocking, I always end up on my toes somehow. And, Coach Thomason teaches me every single time, and then I end up on my toes.
Yeah, you're supposed to walk flat-footed as a lineman.
Yeah.
It's hard. You got to kind
Yeah.
of Barney Rubble it out there. So, run blocking is hard. You're trying to move a guy that sometimes is equivalently sized or weighted, if not bigger. And so a lot of times it's a matter of, are you able to get the leverage, get low man? Did you take the right step to seal the outside as a tackle, things like that? Talk about that a little bit.
So, yeah, like you said, the difference between run blocking and pass blocking is pass blocking, you're getting back and you're waiting for them, while run blocking, you have to take it to them. So that involves a whole new level of variables. You got to take your steps. You got to know where to go. You got to know who you're blocking. If they switch anything up, you got
to read this guy and that guy.
And we have to work together on that. Otherwise, we're going to all be stuck. And one little mishap, and
it can break down an entire play,
somebody
and
gets
then
tackled.
an entire drive, an entire sometimes quarter, depending on what's going on. So you don't realize the level of responsibility that really is on an offensive line. And sometimes you can have an offensive line that's moving along just fine, and one guy gets nicked up or is sick or something, and it could throw off the entire rest of the line. And it's not that the guy that replaced him isn't good enough, but you're accustomed to working as a unit. So, well, thank you for coming up. We won't embarrass you with girlfriend questions or anything like that. So I was going to be Nana, but we're going to have Mr. Macdaniel come up now. And we'll talk to him for a few minutes. And I think we're getting fairly close to, yeah, we're getting close.
Am I good?
Matthew, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Hey, good
I'm
to see
doing
you.
well. So you're a linebacker, right?
Yes, sir. Outside linebacker.
Spent a little time on special teams. You carried the ball a few times this year too.
Yeah.
A little bit more so last season. What do you prefer? Do you like tackling? You like carrying the ball? You like blocking? What do you like?
I mean, I liked carrying the ball a lot last season, but I love defense more than anything.
Well, to me, it's always funner to deliver a hit.
Oh,
you
for
can
sure.
do that as a running back. The thing about being a running back is oftentimes you might be looking to deliver a hit here and not realize you're about to take one over here. So, you've had some big plays this season, some sacks and things like that. Talk about how exciting it is to make a play like that on Friday night.
I mean, it's huge, like especially 6A football and one of the biggest districts, Texas football. I mean, it's a blast making those plays and seeing the student section go crazy.
Yeah, and Leanna's a pretty good student section. It's
it's
pretty
great.
healthy numbers wise, and they're pretty rowdy.
So,
Do you have something you want to ask?
So, same question. You've got two different sets of guys here. Someone like Hendrickson, their guys are bigger, stronger. You've got Round Rock, their guys are a little smaller, a little faster. How do you adjust? What do you look for?
I mean, it's always just the same thing. I feel like it's not really even the opponent we're going up against. It's just us as a team getting better as a whole and, like, knowing what we can do better. I mean, all we can do is change ourselves, not the opponent. And, yeah.
Well, as a linebacker,
Good idea.
you know, your job is to flow. Are you inside? Or you're an outside linebacker. So your job is to scrape and, like, you know, string out the play as best you can, force it back inside. Talk about that. You know, how it's, you know, some teams will try to deceive you and indicate, you know, hey, we're going to go this way. And Round Rock is one of those kind of teams that will give a little bit of misdirection. How do y'all handle that when it looks like, oh, it's coming my side, and then you notice, you know, an end around or something like that?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. You know, it comes down to, like, we all have our single role. You know, as an outside backer, we have to contain the outside. And we don't always get to make that big play. But, you know, that way they can't bounce it out, and we rely on our teammates, like our inside backers, to cover that inside or that cut lane. And,
Well, now when you're an outside linebacker, you sometimes do get to follow, like, say, a bootleg to the opposite side and maybe pick up something coming back the other way, like a reverse.
definitely.
Or you might even get to pursue the quarterback. That's a
Yeah.
long way to run down a quarterback,
yeah,
especially the fast ones that Round Rock generally puts out there. Okay, so talk about the defense as a unit. You know, there's a mix of classes. You've got some sophomores, you've got some juniors, you've got some seniors. I've seen heavy rotation. You got some guys that are mostly offensive guys getting to spend a little time on defense. Talk about that and how that's affected play either positively or negatively, if you think.
Well, it's brought a lot of positives, like especially mixing the younger classes with the older class. Like, there's a lot of kids like Jalen Jammer and kids like that who are able to make a lot of big plays and are really good at where they're at, especially for their age.
Right.
And we all just really gel well together. And we have like a lot of, like you're saying, like different formations we throw out there, but they seem to work really well and just a really good mix of people.
Well, one of the things that traditionally when you split up guys, okay, you're on offense, you're on defense, you're on offense, it kind of builds a little bit of a rivalry. That goes away when you're moving guys on both sides, and to me that can build a little bit of unity as well.
Mm-hmm. That was one thing that was way different this season than any past season I've had at Leander. Like, we haven't really had any like division between offense and defense, and it's really made us a lot better as a team because it's like it just feels like we're all playing football again.
Right, and you're all part of the same team. And there's been talk in past years about playing guys both ways, and there might be one or two guys that, late in the season will get a few plays here or there. But when Coach Price said that he was going to play guys both ways, he really meant he was going to play guys both ways. And we've seen that significantly. And it's not always in the same game, but, from week to week, you might have a guy that's playing on defense this week, but they need him on offense next week. And so as a defense, you guys have to adjust if you lose a guy to one of your corners to play receiver or one of your D linemen to play O-line or something like that.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice, be able to have some of those offensive guys come over and then also defensive guys go over because there's a lot of people who can work better in different situations, like with the faster teams or like if they got a bigger running back, we want some of the bigger guys in and stuff like that.
You'd shift them over.
Well, and that's a strategy that should be employed, per game and, even really sometimes per unit because they may have a heavy offense that they run out. Well, we'll run the heavy defense out to match up. So, Mickey's going to host the trivia game. Are you ready for the trivia?
Why not?
And so we're going to bring Davis back up here, and he's going to compete in some trivia for some prizes. And you'll just close out the podcast at that point, and I'll come down and show you. So if you want to slide over, you can use my headset, and then.
Alrighty.
I never clean it, so.
Not too worried about cooties. We'll be all right. All right. Let you guys get settled in here. Come up with just a handful of fun football trivia here for fun and no profit, but maybe a prize or two. Let's see if I can get my phone to wake up. We'll slide down here. Huh? I haven't even seen him. I think he took them with him. No, they're not.
It's the same one.
That's all right. Well, let's, while he's pulling those up, we'll come up with a couple of easy ones here. Who holds the record for the longest winning streak in college football? Is it Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma, or USC?
Slap the table if you know the answer when you're ready to guess. You gotta guess. There's no penalty.
All right, Alabama.
Nope.
Is it Texas?
Nope.
It's USC. Oh.
Red River Shootout. Who's the other team for Red River Shootout?
Oklahoma.
There you go. All right. Okay, so what was college football's largest victory margin? Is it 90-3, 120-7, or 222-0?
I'm gonna say 120-7.
Is it 90-3?
Nope. It was, in fact, 222 to 0.
222.
I'll have to look it up. I couldn't tell you which game it was. 220.
Is it 122 or 222?
222. Yep.
That's insane.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's see. Let's see if we can come up with a good one here. So, I've got a couple of them here. There's plenty to pick from. Let me switch over windows here. Name, and there are several, so you shouldn't be too hard to come up with one or two. So, give me two Heisman Trophy winners who've gone on to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah, thinking of a lot, but not that have won the Super Bowl.
Okay, so give me two, and there are several to pick from. Give me two players who've won the Heisman and gone on to play and win a Super Bowl.
Oh, wait, two. All right, I need one more. Hold on.
I'll even let you come up with one.
All right, Reggie Bush.
Did you get the Super Bowl?
Oh, and Ricky Williams.
Did you get the Super Bowl? Gotta be Super Bowl.
I was about to say.
Super Bowl. Oh, y'all are getting stumped. All right. Well, I'll let you. I'll throw a couple of names out there, and you can tell me one. You can pick one. Let's see. Let's see. Dan Marino. Marcus Allen. Or Roger Staubach.
Marcus Allen.
Yes.
Oh, all right.
Actually, that was kind of a trick question because Roger Staubach did too. All right, so let's see if we've got a couple of good questions here. Let's see. Oh, we already got that question. All right, which year did football pass up baseball as America's pastime? So in other words, when did football become more popular than baseball? Was it 1965, 1950, or 1992?
I'm going to say 1992.
1965.
All right, y'all are tied. All right, so one more. We'll break the tie here. Let's see. Here's a fun one. This might be a little difficult. I'll see if I can come up with some variations here. What was the former name of the NFL? Was it the American Football Association, the National Professional Football Association, or the American Professional Football Association?
Is it the American Football Association?
Nope.
Is it the second one, the professional?
You gotta say the whole thing, because there were two variations. Was it the National Professional Football Association or the American Professional Football Association?
The American.
There you go. We have a winner. All right. We got some prizes for the guys. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up tonight. I want to say thank you for everybody. So, we got some prizes back here. We'll get you guys some prizes there. Thank you, coaches. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you joining us. Good luck on Friday. Friday at Dragon Stadium, yes.
Thursday we have JV at Running Brushy at
Yep.
6 o'clock.
JV on Thursday at 6 o'clock over at Running Brushy, and Friday, freshman at Round Rock. All right. Thank you, guys.
5 and 7.
5 and 7. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.